recording live, so can people?
Yes, people are going to be able to tap in. They'll be able to leave comments, and we're going to do a hop-on show. So if we like one of the comments, we're going to invite that commenter to join us on the screen in audio or audio and video and leave that comment. Hey, Code Keepers, man, listen. This one is going to be for the books. This one is beautiful. We got Dr. Dennis. We got Minister Zumbi Shawala. Woo, we're going to talk about the scammers. And as you saw from the screen, I have Mia and Shawna from my beloved TV show. Woo. From my beloved TV show. And I can't remember the name of the show. But I do know their names, Mia and Shawna. For the record, I am Team Shawna. I know most of y'all who know me would say he probably Team, Mia. I'm Team Shawna. All right, so this is from Rap SHIT, IssaRae's Rap-ish. And we have Mia and Shawna. And you remember their famous song is Seduce and SCAM, because Shawna was a scammer, right? So the famous song was Seduce and SCAM. And I tell you, we're going to talk about the scammers in our neighborhood. There's too many of them. We need to be able to watch out for them. We need to be able to identify them as they're becoming popular. And we need to know how we identify and deal with them. Why? Because we all need to get on code. All right. Welcome to Get On Code, the Fly Guy Show, which is a series of melanated conversations focused on empowerment, health, wealth, and knowledge of self.
People think in binary choices because they are conditioned to.
And on the wall was a picture of a wolf and a lion. I think the wolf was the Democratic Party, the lion was the Republicans.
But the drug trade and all these illegal stuff that people do, that's still economics. It's just that they couldn't do it in a traditional system.
We're talking about melanated wealth.
So we can build wealth, but we just, for some reason, don't seem to be able to transfer it.
You had a great experience. Fine. That means nothing.
What were you told as a child about education? You had to be how many times better?
Every impression without an expression becomes depression.
Yes, Lord, it's time to get on board with Get On Code. And I want to introduce to the platform. If you've been watching the platform, I kind of did a slight introduction last week. Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis. Doc, what's good? I don't know if you can do this, but in 15 seconds, tell us who you are.
I always can. I'm Dr. Kimya Nuru Dennis. I'm a community advocate, sociologist, criminologist, professor, researcher, and evaluator. I specialize in Black health, education, which means doing reading, teaching, and learning everywhere so that we don't wait for schools to change. And then I also do economic development work for our people to learn how to develop and stop waiting for everyone else to develop us.
Ooh, we got to stop waiting for others to develop us. I share you upon that. Zumbi, you feeling good, bro?
Yes.
All right, so look, bro, you've been wanting to talk about the scammers in the quote unquote Black community for a while. All right. Dr. Dennis was saying, yo, we need to talk about the scammers out there. So I'm going to let y'all do a cipher a little bit. I want to see and I want to learn from the both of you, who are the scammers, what scams they're running, and what we, collective, should be looking out for. Doc, this is your first time on the platform. Why don't you start us off? Why are we concerned with the scammers out there?
All right. So first, give a shout out to the 5%ers who are the ones who created ciphers, and then, of course, brought that to hip hop. So
peace to the gods and the earth and the beautiful people of the universe.
Yep, we got to teach our people the history and the origins, all that. So the scammers are mostly our own people. So there's actually research when we talk about frauds and scams. They are within race, within ethnicity, within culture mostly, because people within the group know that you're going to automatically trust within your family, within your friendships, within your acquaintance, and within any network to which you're accustomed to being. So in criminology and criminal justice, we talk about this a lot. so that people can understand some warning signs. I'm also a very big adamant person about contracts. So word of mouth works good, but we have to make sure we understand humans update. So word of mouth was good for Black folks generations ago. It doesn't work that same way now that populations have shifted. People have moved away from the towns to which they were born and raised. So scamming is something very important, and evidence is always required, whether we're talking about donating to something, someone who claims they do investments, it's all types of things. So I have some stories to tell as well as my experiences. When I have conversations with our people, many of our people want to believe anything told to them. And so when it turns out to be a fraud, our people tend to solidify why they don't trust anyone instead of ignoring preventive measures to which we explain in the first place. So I always tell our people, paranoia, conspiracy theories are not the same thing as preventive measures. They're not the same thing. You're on mute, brother.
Zumbi, what are your thoughts on what the good doctor just shared, man?
You know, we had done a previous show where I talked about scams, schemes, hustles, cons, and running game. One of the things that I've really noticed is that those who I have labeled as hotep hustlers and black power pimps, those have been the ones who have come before the people and have created elaborate schemes to divorce the people from their financial resources. There's always this flavor of the month thing. You know, I remember I was talking to a friend of mine. I told her, I said, you know, 25 years ago, I was the one who was discussing multi-generational wealth. I was the one who was discussing this. Nobody wanted to hear it. Nobody wanted to give me a grant to discuss it with the people. Now we fast forward, it's become the flavor of the month in this post-pandemic economy. Okay. And so what we see now are financial predators who are rearing their heads to take advantage of people who may be in very vulnerable, very desperate situations. And hopefully tonight we can get into those situations, how to prevent them, and hopefully be able to, if we can identify who are the hotep hustlers, who are the black power pimps and others, if we bring them before the people, it would be nice if we had a tribunal of elders and young warriors. But we need to put ourselves in a position to where when we see something foul, we must identify it and we must call it out immediately.
True indeed, God. True indeed. You call this term that you use, the hotep hustlers. I guess this comes to mind when I hear this. Let me go up just a little bit. I'm not calling 19 Keys a scammer. I'm not saying that. But what I'm saying is there's an archetype, and 19 Keys seems to fit that hotep hustler archetype. You know, he might be the right one, he might be the clean one, he might be the example that the others need to follow. But is that what you're talking about when you say hotep hustler?
The hotep hustler and the black power pimp, what they do is they always use culture as a vehicle to gain the trust of the people, or of the what I should say, the potential targets, where you start to use culture. You begin to use culture, you begin to use maybe terms, phrases that the people may not be familiar with, and you mix it and then you serve it to the people. That's why, for me, I never use an arena where people are so emotionally charged until they can't think. Okay, so if me or Dr. Dennis is trying to instruct our people, we can't do it in an emotional setting because the people aren't thinking. You see. So what the hotep hustler and the black power pimp does, they bypass your critical thinking and try to reach you at a gut level. That's why they always mix cultural terms with certain economic terms to make them sound more sophisticated than they really are.
Hey, Doc, chime in. I know you have some thoughts.
Yeah, so when we're talking about it, again, we're talking about within race, specifically for Black people, and if we talk about it from a global standpoint for Black people. So internationally, the majority of Black people who are doing the financial scams tend to come from Nigeria. We want to explain this in a factual way without people trying to become anti-Africa and anti-Africans, because I always have to remind our people, if you're anti-Africa, anti-Africans, you're anti-Black, no exception. So we want people to understand scams without being paranoid of our people locally, nationally, and around the world. We're still Africans. We can still support our people while also understanding a lot of scams they do, because they recognize that most people do not read. And we're talking about our people as well, do not read books. That's a problem with adults. I talk about that when people are mad about books being banned. A lot of people would not have read the book anyway. So we have to talk about why we're outraged if we're not going to read regardless. So similar happens when we're talking about contractual agreements. When you go to banks, when you go to pick up a car, when you go to investments, you're not asking for contracts that are legally binding. And a lot of people don't understand the difference between watching people's court versus what's really happening in the law. And we always have to remind our people that we all have access to the law. We all have access to legal codes. These are all publicly accessible documents, locally and nationally. Therefore, we always have to remind people when something happens that's against the law, we can never say, well, I didn't know, because the onus is on us to check the law. And we have to remember, scammers know when you're not checking the law. They know when you're just trusting because it's fellow Black folks, or it's your cousin, or it's your grandma even. A lot of people get mad when I say that, but I mean, anybody can really do this if they know that you're not paying attention, and you'll be generous. You'll donate to a school that totally exists. You won't ask for evidence of curriculum and other materials. And so this is where our people just have to really pay attention, because we can always be outraged over government and stuff, but if we're perpetuating it within our culture, locally, nationally, and globally, how could we be really baffled and shocked when outsiders do this to us? Because they already know we'll fall for it for our own people. So why wouldn't they try it?
You mentioned schools that haven't come into fruition. So when I think about that, the first name that pops into my mind, and we all know the name, Dr. Umar.
You can just call him Umar Johnson. You don't have to put the unproven terminal degree in front of his name.
We don't have to put the honorific there, okay? Ooh, that's spicy. Okay. How could we address this? Part of me really wants to say, I know it's really going to happen. It's going to happen one day. It's really going to happen one day. I have to admit, back in 2012, I was a part of a collective that brought Dr. Umar to the Hampton Roads region. And we put on 2 big events, and he walked away with $5,000, which was going toward the Frederick Douglass Marcus Garvey Academy. I don't know if it did or not. I trusted at that point. I don't know if I was right. I don't know if I was wrong. To be honest with you, that's 2012. So that was 12 years ago.
So you already know the answer. You already know the answer to yourself. I will say, I don't want to waste time talking about him specifically, because he has a lot of fans who will harass you if you do that. I will just make a general statement. He's not the first of our people to do that. This has happened for generations. And this is why I tell Black people, it's supposed to be something where it has tax documents. If you donate, They can give you documents so that when you file your taxes, you can say you donated, right? But before you donate to anyone who says that they are starting a school, they have to do more than show you a building. And this is not just for that one person. I'm talking about this happens also locally, nationally. This just happens because people recognize that our people tend not to ask the questions. So when someone says they're starting a school, do not allow them to show you images or a building. Actually ask them about the curriculum. They have to show you evidence of the curriculum that they're developing, the materials that they're using, the types of people that they plan to hire, who's going to be on their board, how they're going to speak with accreditors, because they have to have accreditation, right?
Right.
Understand that when people scam our people on things like schools and health resources, like the fake Sebi, who pretended that he could cure everything, and the only reason it was thrown out of court was based on the promise that he and his family would stop promising that they can cure everything. Okay, but unfortunately by then he had already told Black people that he could cure everything. So people still to this day in 2024 still sell things like CMOS and pretend that he invented that and other products, and they think that it's curing everything. So a lot of people use that as an excuse to not go to doctors. So I just want our people to understand we have to have evidence. It's okay to like somebody. It's okay to hope the best from that person. But now you have to do what we call quality assurance, okay? Because if that person disappears, if what they're doing fails, you're gonna have a very difficult time putting it in court, because a person can just say it was a donation with no promise that there was gonna be an outcome. Same thing that happens when people promise you that they have a health benefit and they say, well, you trusted that this could fix your health condition, and I didn't really tell you that legally.
Okay, you hurting my feelings now, sis. You messing with Dr. Sebi. Ooh.
He's not, again, that's another, he's not a doctor. He did not have any terminal degree, okay? So he initially said that he had cured his own mental illness. And eventually when he was brought to court, it's because particularly Black people were using some of his products and it did not have the effect that he had promised, which is typical. And they threw it out of court based on the promise that he and his family would stop claiming to be a cure-all for everything, because that was their initial claim, that they can cure everything. And this is why I explained to our people, the meaning of holistic health is that you combine everything. Healthy eating, exercising, and exercise includes people with disability figuring out what works for their body. Healthy eating, exercising, you can do herbs and medicines, but you have to remember nature can also kill people. Cocaine comes from nature, opioid comes from nature. There are plants and fruits that can kill people, right? So that's why you also go to the doctor. You also go to a mental health professional. You also go to a dentist, gynecologist. You get your prostate checked. All of these things combined, that's what holistic health means. So never trust anyone who's telling you that they have the cure for everything. They're lying. There's no data to support it. And you'll never find a licensed, qualified, legally authorized medical and health professional to tell you that what they give you will cure everything. You'll never be prescribed a medication by even a dermatologist. And they'll say, this will cure you, we promise you legally. Because they know that it doesn't promise anything. And you could literally take them to court if they promise that, right? So if we know that for people who are legally verified and formally educated to do medical and health work, do not believe people because you found them on a corner store. Or we have now, I live in Baltimore, of course. I'm not from Baltimore, but I live here. And we have entire shops that they have all these pills, like that. You can buy a big bag of pills. Do you all know what chemicals are in these pills? Even the herbs, do you all know that it's not dust that they found down Bella Road and put it in the bag, similar to when people sell weed and it's like dirt they found on the corner? I just want our people to understand frauds and scams include everything that people think that they can just trust because they were just told that it's quick and easy to do it. And when it fails, people have to self-reflect on how they could have caught the warning sign.
Whoa. Okay, Doc, you just heard us. You just heard us. But I think it was a needed pain to address the scammers in the area. A salute to Emmanuel Briggs. Hey, Zumbi, this is going in a very different direction than we had talked about with our earlier discussion on scammers. Because Doc just brought up.
Not necessarily, and I'll tell you why. When I wrote my book, for those of you who do have a copy of my book, I put a disclaimer at the beginning of the book because, and the reason I did that was for a couple of reasons. A lot of what is in my book is based on my years of research and personal experience in business, economics, and finance. But I put a disclaimer in the beginning of the book because I'm talking from a layman's perspective. Okay. I always tell people I am not the be all end all, because there are experts in certain areas of business, economics, entrepreneurship, and finance that you should discuss. So, for example, don't come to me. I mentioned in a previous show about how you should have a wealth building cabinet. And I mentioned certain people you should have. Okay. Don't come to me about taxes. Go to a tax attorney or a tax strategist to help you develop the tax strategy you need for your unique situation. The same with an asset protection attorney, the same with an estate planning attorney. Okay. I'm not the be all end all, but I can point you in the direction to the people who are experts in those particular fields. Okay. That's just my personal Bushido, because I do not believe in misleading my people. Because if I say that I love, honor, and cherish African people, then I will make sure that I will bring no harm to them, intentionally, unintentionally, or otherwise. Okay. So that's just
Wait. For the uninitiated, what does the term Bushido mean, bro?
It's basically a code of conduct. It's what the samurai used in Japan. Okay. So what is our Bushido? And I go back to something that Brother Copley taught me back in 2002. He says, when you choose to serve the people, don't come before the people dirty. And I took that to heart when he said that to me in November 2002. And I always want to make sure that if I present anything before the people, I am the first guinea pig. I am the one who will invest my own resources into it before I ask the people for a dime. That's me. Okay.
Yeah, we want to salute the ancestor, Steve Coakley. You know, once again, as I always say, he called me an oath keeper. And Doc, he would probably call you an oath keeper. But hey, I keep my oaths as well. So, you know, I just found online a video that deals with Dr. Sebi and somebody who maybe unraveled some information on it. I'm not sure where this is going to go, but I do want to see where it goes. So let's check out what this sister has to say about Dr. Sebi, because
can you stop calling him doctor, please? Please just call him Sebi, because he really had no degree.
Oh, snap.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ooh, bad host. Okay. Bad host. All that time, and I just started looking at the messages. Yeah. Yeah. All right, we'll have to edit that out.
I can explain it though.
Rappers and hotep internet forums. Needed a cure for cancer, HIV, and other ailments that would have made Big Pharma lose out on hella money, so they sabotaged his career and killed him. Believers of this theory claim Sebi proved he cured HIV before the Supreme Court of New York and won. Here are the facts. Sebi was born Alfredo Bowman in Honduras. He learned herbal remedies from his grandmother, and this is how his healing career began. He founded Ogun Herbal Research Institute in Brooklyn, New York, in 1985, and never claimed to be a doctor, but he did claim his herb remedies revitalized cells. In 1985, he began advertising a cure for HIV, though the official test didn't debut until the end of that year. False positives on official tests were common until the end of the decade. On February 10th, 1987, Sebi was arrested on 2 counts of practicing medicine without a license and 1 count of dispensing medicine without a license. The more serious charges were leveled in front of the Supreme Court of New York in September 1988. It was reported that Sebi was acquitted on October 1st, 1988. In the court documents and newspapers, it's made plainly clear that Sebi was on trial for practicing medicine without a license. At no point was he ever on trial to prove that his herbal remedies were effective in curing HIV or cancer. In 1988, Sebi's own lawyer said, "The Attorney General proceeded on the erroneous assumption that the products being marketed were medicinal compounds. The products, in fact, are vegetarian natural liquid compounds. This explains why Sebi successfully beat the charge of practicing medicine without a license. He was not actually practicing medicine as defined by law, but that isn't the claim made by conspiracy theorists. The claim is that his dietary program could cure HIV and other illnesses, which brings me to another statement by Sebi's own lawyer. There is a total lack of proof that he was practicing medicine within the meaning of the statute, and the claim of a cure came from individuals that had these experiences and reported them. The Institute merely echoed their sentiments. This quote reveals that no actual research was being performed on the clients that would accurately monitor the cure of HIV or any other illnesses. Claims of being cured were self-reported by Sebi's clients. But also, Sebi didn't die until 2016 at the age of 82, meaning that if Big Pharma really did kill him of pneumonia, as people claim, they let him walk around making a small fortune from celebrities like Michael Jackson and Left Eye for 31 years. Come on now.
Maybe you're thinking about going back to school. Better yet, considering changing careers. But it's like, school brings on big debt. Not if you pick your chosen college of William and Mary.
Now, Doc, you could have done the same thing, I'm sure, right?
I'm sorry, say that again.
If nature didn't make it don't.
I said, I know that you could have done the same thing.
Well, I mean, I just explain this everywhere since I specialize in health equity, and community patient advocacy. But unfortunately, as a people, we're easily offended. So when people like somebody, when people like a scammer, it doesn't matter what facts you share. They like the scammer. They're loyal. That includes when they donate to people who claim to build museums, people who claim to build schools, and people who claim to cure something. And every scammer, what they do, it's like a cult leader, right? They share the nonsense to particular people, and then the people are the ones who spread it. So then the cult leader just washes themselves of the nonsense, and they claim, I never said that. Every cult leader does that. So when we talk about the falsehoods of health, we have entire shops of people claiming that they have medicinal cures for stuff and claiming that they don't have to ever go to a doctor, right? And I mean, there's so many, and this is not just, I mean, it's about horrifying results like our health issues, but it's also financial scams in that these places make a lot of money.
Right.
These places make a lot of money.
Mm.
So yeah, I just want our people to understand that it's a financial fraud, it's a health fraud. So, and it perpetuates falsehoods that And like Emmanuel Briggs is saying, cult of personality, it's all something people monopolize and they manipulate when it comes to a desperate group of people who they know are desperate, who've been told to be anti-establishment, anti-this, anti-that, people who've been told to always talk about scientific racism, medical racism, people who've been told to not have a bank account because you don't know what the government's going to do with your bank account, people who've been told to not even pay taxes. Like literally the work I do includes having to beg Black folks to get a legal tax repair and pay taxes. I mean, people who I have to experience about getting legal financial advisor who will do investments and 401k. I mean, our people, unfortunately, many have been told to not do any of this. And I still tell our people, if you choose not to do any of this, the government can find you because you still owe taxes and you still have a social security number. There's no such thing as being a nomad or a sovereign citizen. And your taxes are paying for a lot of stuff that you're not utilizing as well.
And another thing, at least from what I found, one of the characteristics of a scam artist, I don't care who you mention, they all have some form of criminal background. All of them, without exception. Okay. And it seems like they bring that criminality from one arena into another arena. And in this particular case, where you bring it into the arena of what's called cultural consciousness. Okay. And you don't seem to, I always like to go back and talk about Malcolm. When Malcolm went into that Massachusetts prison, he went in as Detroit Red, but he came out as Malcolm X. So whoever that criminal was that went in never came out. What we find is that those who did have a checkered past or a criminal past, they never took the time to transform themselves into being upright, moral, civilized, and righteous. They brought that same criminal element into this culturally conscious arena. And now the target has become their own people, innocent, hardworking, law-abiding African people. Okay? And instead of being the producers and providers and protectors of the village, they've now become predators in the village. You see? And so, and I might as well mention this case in point. Everybody talks about Jay Morrison and the Tulsa Real Estate Fund. What really gave me a red flag was when DeMaurice Smith, who's the executive, who was the union leader for the NFL Players Association, when they came out and told their 1,600 players, do not invest your money in the Tulsa Real Estate Fund because one of its players, former New York Jet, Muhammad Wilkerson, lost $300,000 in that investment. Once I read that report from DeMaurice Smith, I said, uh-oh. Now we got to step back here because now we have an entity and we've got a brother warning those that he's responsible for, don't put your money here. Okay, are you familiar with that particular story?
No, I'm not. Do you want to share more details so that we can read up on this, please?
This is the one thing when Jay Morrison came with this Tulsa Real Estate Fund, and this is where I talk about culture, where now you want to use the legacy of Black Wall Street to entice the people to put money into this particular fund, which I think just recently they had to dissolve because it burned so much money. I think he had raised, if I'm not mistaken, $11 million. Okay. And so when I read the report from the NFL Players Association and DeMaurice Smith said, do not put your money here. And I don't know if there were any other NFL players who were considering putting their money into this, but Muhammad Wilkerson was reporting to have lost anywhere from $250,000 to $300,000 in that particular investment. So if our athletes can get fleeced, then what happens to the average brother or sister? See? So that's why I said we have to be very adamant. In fact, we need to be more proactive in terms of certain things. One of the things that I always say is this: the more you know how to ask the right questions. So if someone comes to me with a proposal to give money towards the school, okay, I'm going to act like I'm one of those people on Shark Tank or Dragon's Den, because now I'm not only making an investment in your vision, I'm making an investment in you to make it happen. So I'm asking for a curriculum. I'm asking for, what is your philosophy? What is your program? What is your plan? What is your process? And you have to lay that out to me, along with financial statements, along with articles of incorporation that you file with the state in which this school will operate. Okay? So there's certain due diligence that the individual must present to you, and there's due diligence on my part as a potential investor that I'm going to put into this project. So I can't leave the people off the hook. They have to become more proactive and start acting like investors and saying, what is the return on my investment and what is the return of my investment? Not necessarily back to me, but to the people.
Exactly. So, and we have some wonderful comments coming in.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, so when we think about this, we're talking about how people become experts. We do want our people to read more, engage more, participate in more programs, because one thing I explained to our people, we have in-person and virtual Black economic development programs. Like even on Juneteenth, there were Black banks and Black organizations that did economic development sessions in person and virtually. So we want our people to do more of this, take notes. It doesn't mean you're a financial expert, right? Because even financial experts, like my financial advisor, who's a Black man for 10 years, he'll admit when he has to research something more. I always tell people the best way to be an expert is to admit you don't know everything, right? You're gonna come back, speak with your colleagues, speak with someone who might be across the nation, who really has this expertise, and they have wonderful advice to offer and more resources to provide, and that's how it should go. So how do you handle our people who become maybe outraged when you tell them to be more strategic because they've been accustomed to be quick to give money somewhere?
Okay, here's how I do it. I have two godchildren. They're both in the Bronx. And the way I look at a situation is, if I invest in this, is this taking money away from my godson's financial future or my goddaughter's financial future? Okay, because we can't just look at it as, and see, here's another thing that I think also. Are you a fan of the CNBC show American Greed?
No, but here's why though. It has nothing to do with the show.
Okay.
I don't watch any of these news networks.
Okay, well, here's what I'm saying. What I'm also saying, and this might be controversial, also, I think the scammer has a way of tapping into not only the ignorance of the people, but also the fear and the greed of the people. Okay, so the people themselves have to say, okay, am I of good character when I do this? What is my driving force in doing this? Am I trying to look for a quick buck? Am I trying to get something for nothing? Okay, so we have to look at both sides of this equation here, because it takes two to tango. All right, and it's something metaphysically that I learned. There are no victims, only volunteers.
Interesting. So I talk about that when I talk about Quicken Loans and all those other resources that people think are just quick money. So would you say that's people basically volunteering and not being victimized?
It's really about taking advantage, and this is where, you know, I'm in total agreement with Warren Buffett when he says, if you cannot control your emotions, you cannot control your money. Money is a very emotional subject. It triggers emotions that run the gamut from I detest it to I deify it. Okay, and so for the individual, have you mastered yourself enough to where money is your servant and not your master? Okay, because a lot of times we get caught up in situations and we allow our emotions to make decisions instead of our rationale and our logic and our due diligence to make decisions. Okay, when you talk to professional investors, the one thing that they do is they always go in with an investment strategy. Why? Because it protects them from their own emotions. Okay, and so I say that for our people is that we have to graduate from checkers to chess. In some cases, we have to graduate to three-dimensional chess. When it comes to our resources, whether it's our physical health or our holistic health or our financial resources or any other form of wealth that we may have individually or as a collective. Okay, because the universe and the ancestors have made us stewards of this. So, and I always quote Proverbs 17:16, and I'm paraphrasing, what good is it for a man to acquire money if he lacks the desire to learn how to manage and master it? Okay. Right. And I think this is where we get into trouble, where we become lazy. And that's why we are so quick to buy into a cult of personality saying, well, here's the keys to the car. And we just laying back instead of taking the wheel and, you know, being accountable and responsible for our own financial and our own physical, holistic health well-being.
Right. And that's when we talk about centuries of the Black empowerment, pro-Black work. It includes economic development, right? So we can look to W.B. Du Bois's Dusk of Dawn, how, of course, Booker T. Washington's work, which is the foundation of Marcus Garvey's work. And you can look at what Harold Cruz developed and Maggie Lena Walker. So there's many different examples that we have as a people. Right. We understand inequities, we understand injustices. We always, I mean, humans have always had that for more than 1 million years, potentially. So we always have injustices, but we have to understand how the responsibility and resources that we can develop, because our people have really been developing that for centuries regarding race, and how to utilize that. So that's very important.
And then there's also, I guess you would call it ancestral trauma. And I'll explain. When Ida B. Wells Barnett developed her newsletter, she had actually done a study. And what she found out was that of all the African people that were lynched during her time, 80 to 85% of them were business owners and entrepreneurs. Okay. Then we go into the end of the Roaring 20s, into the stock market crash, into the Great Depression. It seems like we have this schizophrenic attitude when it comes to economics. It's like we say we're anti-capitalist, but yet we always want to have a GoFundMe when you need money for medical expenses. So you kind of insult my intelligence, where you say you hate money, but you need it. Okay, so we have that type of schizophrenia going on with our people, where they don't really understand. And here's the other thing: people who are always criticizing economic systems have never studied one economic theory. They've never studied Adam Smith. They've never studied Karl Marx. But yet they hate economics. But you go to the Million Man March and say it's nation time, but you can't have a nation without an economy. So we have this schizophrenia that's running rampant throughout our community and amongst our people.
Right. So since I do economic development presentations, I use the example of Adam Smith's definition of mode of production. Now, of course, Booker T. Washington did not read Adam Smith, but capitalism has existed even before transatlantic slavery. It just changed its mode. And one thing I explain when I do presentations is capitalism has changed for more than a century. More than a century, it's been integrated with particularly a European form of socialism, which is how we talk about the Great Depression, which is how we talk about having the New Deal. And I encourage our people to read more. If you want examples, explain again in W.B. Du Bois's Dusk of Dawn, where he presents his cooperative economic development recommendations. And he didn't provide the full details. That's where Harold Cruz comes in and he gives the steps. So when I do economic development presentations and writings, I use the Harold Cruz models for how we use our culture for socio-political and socioeconomic development. But I explained that to do this, we can't be stuck in the capitalism that existed more than 200 years ago. You have to update it because every predominantly white nation, which Europe, USA, Canada, has integrated the form of European socialism for more than a century. USA is still the most capitalist of these nations, but it's still all integrated. How else would we have social welfare? How else would we have soup kitchens? How else would we have SNAP, EBT, veterans benefits, Social Security, disability, and other resources? This is paid through our taxes, through form of socialism. It's not the original form of socialism, but every culture around the world has different forms of economic systems, including socialism. So I always explain to our people, you can't be anti-capitalism if you haven't updated how you define capitalism. And you can't be pro-socialism or even pro-communalism if you don't understand that the moment you want to develop your own and profit from it, not just exchanging products, but actually getting some money, that's when you have a form of capitalism integrated. It can be a mild form, but it's still capitalism, right? So that's where we explain to our people. A lot of anti-capitalism jargon comes because people have not updated this. They're still using Karl Marx, Frederick Engels, and I'm saying this as a sociologist and criminologist who teaches Marx and Engels, because a lot of people just think that that's the model to use. But we have to understand that people like Harold Cruz stopped using that model. Like even Du Bois did not use that model because it doesn't pertain around the world. Karl Marx went based on, he started in Western Europe, he added Eastern Europe because of how Eastern Europe proved that they could do a potential change. But Karl Marx and Frederick Engels did not consider Africans, Asians, and people indigenous to Western Hemisphere. Which are not us. I want Black folks to remember, we're not indigenous to the Western Hemisphere. We're Africans, okay? So we have to understand how to update this. Karl Marx provided a good theory with some good plans of action, but it doesn't mean it pertains to us. We can integrate components of it, but it has to be having a factual depiction of capitalism, how socialism already been integrated. And then if you want to add some of Karl Marx's stuff, it has to be based on factual depiction. So this is what I explained in
we are working to ensure our communities.
Right. And I always talk about approaching economics through an African-centered lens. And there's a couple of ways we could do that. One of the things that I talk about is being what I call a $20 revolutionary. What that means is every week, you should make a $20 purchase from a Black-owned business, whether it's brick and mortar or e-commerce. Okay, that's one way. Another way that I talk about this in my book, is what I call cultural tithing. So I'll give you an example. Let's take Arthur Blank, co-founder of Home Depot. If he cuts a check to, let's say he cuts a $10 million check to the ADL, what he is doing, he is practicing cultural tithing because he is giving to a Jewish organization that looks out for the needs and the wants of the Jewish world community. That is what I call cultural tithing. So are we giving a portion of our income towards an African-centered or race-first organization that looks out for the needs and the wants of the African world community. Okay, you don't have to leave your church, your synagogue, your masjid, etc. You can incorporate it, whether it's your fraternal, sorority, Masonic. So there are just basic things that we can incorporate into what we already do. And I'm kind of taking a page from Malcolm's Ballad of the Bullet, where when he developed the gospel of Black nationalism, he says you don't have to leave, just incorporate it into what you already do. Okay, so by taking more of an African-centered approach, where I am my brother or my sister's keeper, I will not harm them in terms of their holistic health or their fiscal health. Okay, so there has to be, that's why I said it, there has to be a Bushido when we come before the people. Che Guevara calls it moral superiority. In other words, are we impeccable with how we interact with the people we say we want to serve?
You know, I like that Bushido term, bro. You know, I like that Bushido term because I think we got to get on code. And our code is empowerment. Hey, look, you mentioned your book. And so I want to make sure you get a chance to give a 30-second talk on your books and get your book ready. And Doc, I know you have a couple of books. I don't know if you have them handy, but we're definitely going to get a chance to show
books,
them
articles. We're working on a book, but I have articles that are published, and people can actually email me, and I will send them the shared Google Drive links of articles. So we're still working on the book.
Okay, we'll make sure.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
We'll make sure that we give out your email address in just a second. I want to say Doc has this beautiful video I've been watching where she was doing a lecture in B-More. I think it's in B-More, right? And man, this lecture is hot. I'm going to leave the link in the description so the code keepers can check that out. But Zumbi, you have your book ready?
Yes. This is what ready? I call.
Wait,
yes.
Hold on. Just, I go first, bro.
But you ain't got no book.
I have this.
You will be wealthier.
My wife and I were flipping our first. When
you shift the way you see things, then your life is going to shift.
Money is a tool for what you want. Money is not what you want. You don't want what you want.
So that goes to show that you don't. So that goes to show that you don't. When you do not take your money and put it into those accounts to earn interest. When you're scared your money that something is going to happen. God says, "Who are you trusting in?" Because I'm the one that has created the money. Says trusting in.
Well, I then got offered $350 million for my company. $350 million for my company.
Says you owe about 500.
That the individual and the individual family unit is responsible for fulfilling their own.
I went from being homeless and living on the street. I went from being homeless and living on the street to owning properties in Baltimore.
That's why I decided to start a bank.
This is something that Martin Luther King spoke about.
Your stupid mistake, continue stumbling forward, continue stumbling forward. The most smart had to go in red.
All right, so that's the new trailer for my documentary series, Generational Flip. You can go to generationalflip.com. That's generationalflip.com. Check it out before it hits the streamers. It's worth the investment. Okay, I did mine first. I don't. Zumbi, what you got, bro? What you got?
So basically, this is the Gospel of Afronomics Theology. This is about 22 years worth of personal experience, research in areas of business, economics, entrepreneurship, and finance. This is what I call Rich Dad, Poor Dad meets Malcolm X's Gospel of Black Nationalism. There were books that were being put out there, but there were very few that on a grassroots level that gave economics and finance through an African-centered lens. So this is what I call having an African-centered philosophy when you approach business, economics, entrepreneurship, and finance.
Beautiful. You did it, man. 30 seconds, bro. I want to clap for that.
Can I chime in?
I love it.
Can I chime in?
Yes, please.
I want to give Brother Wesley Hawkins a shout out. He's on the documentary. He's born and raised in Baltimore, and he still lives in Baltimore, and he does a lot of important work. And I just want to make sure our people understand that this documentary is for our people, and it's not only for people of higher socioeconomic status. I don't want our people who are poor working class to be scared away, because sometimes it can sound like a motivational speaker who's telling you everybody's going to be wealthy, and they assume that wealth means you're going to be a millionaire. I always explain to Black folks, building wealth means building savings account, building 401k, investments, and your financial planner, meaning your legal financial planner, will tell you you don't have to become a millionaire. It's not a requirement to build wealth. I mean, you don't have to not, but I mean, we don't want our people to think that you have to become a millionaire, because whenever I talk about Black wealth, people try to use examples of, they want to be anti-capitalism. They were like, but look at Jay-Z, Beyonce. I was like, look, that can't be your model. Like, we have centuries of different examples of Black people trying to save something, whether you kept it in your pillow or something. You kept it because the whole idea is you're building it, passing generation to generation, property, like Brother Wesley Hawkins talking about in the documentary. So we just want our people to understand this also pertains to our people who are poor working class, middle class. You don't have to have this narrow image of wealth to mean that you have to want to flash it with this fancy car, and it has to be that you want to be a millionaire. Building wealth means that we're reducing the likelihood of our people being paycheck to paycheck. It doesn't mean that it's going to be a quick and easy outcome of all of a sudden getting hundreds of thousands of dollars, but we want our people to have resources and options without waiting for the government and them to do this for us.
All right, hopefully you typing in the contact information that we'll share.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So we're going to share that with the code keepers.
Kimya at 365 Diversity.
Okay. Hey, tell us about your website.
Well, they can go to the link tree. So when they go to the link tree, the first part of the link tree is my website. Then under that, they'll see different podcasts, articles. When they go to the link tree, they'll have access to everything, because there's a lot on the website. So they can just go directly to the link tree. And then if they want a whole lot, like photos and everything, they can go to my website, which is the top link at the top of the link tree, to see all the community work and everything.
I'm still enamored with the information that you shared on this YouTube video. So code keepers, Dr. Dennis has the intersection of Black health, education, and economic development. The intersection of health, education, and economic development. That's like health, wealth, and knowledge itself. Peace to the guys and to the earth, and to the beautiful people of the universe. You got to check that video out. It's on YouTube. Let me go ahead and put into the chat Dr. Dennis's email address. So that way, if you want to catch up with Doc, you can do that. Yeah, there we go. So I know Emmanuel's probably going to hit you up, because Emmanuel is a code keeper, and we got a couple other code keepers that are checking in.
Yeah, we got some. That's why I always talk about Black intellect. I never want us to consider our people helpless, without responsibility, without knowledge and intellect, and it doesn't require formal education. So I also send shared Google Drive links with entire books, articles like economic development. So you can read the economic development recommendations from Harold Cruz. My father and I have authored some of those pieces regarding Harold Cruz. We have Thomas Sowell. We have William Julius Wilson. So there's different economic proposals. And there's also some recommendations for Black women in USA, with some examples from Zimbabwe, Tanzania, Kenya. And also examples where you'd learn about Julius Nyerere and when he was using African communalism, and how that didn't work, because as humans, we have to remember, when you want to change something, it's always going to become formal. And when it becomes formal, it's a government, right? And when it's a government, it's not going to be as quick, easy, and polite as we assume. Because a lot of people think that as Africans, we can just have this system that we create and everything's perfect. Humans are complex. Economic systems are complex. Similar to when we're talking about, as a criminologist, we talk about morality, legality, everything's complex, right? And you're going to have policies and laws. If you think people are just going to do things word of mouth, including economically, that's just not how it's going to work. That's why there's court systems around the world since the origins of humans. And so I can provide readings via email as well for that.
All right. Hey, look, we started this conversation about scammers. Why don't we round this thing out with the ending information on scammers? We didn't get a chance to say everything earlier about scams because we went into your economic development and your ideologies and Zumbi's book, all of this I love. But I really want to make sure that people walk away more protected than when they started this video. So what are some other things or some ending things that we can say to the code keepers about scams and scammers?
I'll start out. So research. So be a researcher. So people who are on Snap/EBT, you can actually go to the EBT website for your state, and it will have information about frauds up there and how you can lock your EBT card up. And yes, there are people who are building wealth who still need EBT while they're working on that. Okay. And so there's information also when you look at irs.gov, there's information on your state websites across the nation about how to avoid scams. So we receive emails every day. Those of us who work with different organizations, we receive updates when there's fraud, scams, people claiming to work for banks, and they'll send you a text message or call you. So similar happens when we're talking about Black people victimizing each other regarding scams. People will be observing you. So we talk about this in criminology, criminal justice, routine activities theory. What's your routine that can seem conducive to people who want to be an offender? And that can include scammers who notice that you throw away things regarding your credit card without shredding it, shred products instead of just throwing it away, right? Family knows that you're getting some money. So they want your money. Make sure you're careful about where you keep things like social security number, your debit card, credit card. Yes, you love your family, but you still have to make sure you're careful. People who want donations, people who claim they're starting a museum, a school, people who claim to have an organization. It's okay and important that we as Black people support our people with startups and also our people who've been doing this for many years. But we still want to make sure that for tax purposes, they can show us what they're doing and they can give us some kind of documents to verify that we're donating that we can provide to our tax preparer. So I'll stop there.
Zumbi, last words on scammers. What are your thoughts?
Silence is golden. Not everybody has to know what you got or what you don't got. And I may have to use an extreme example. This took place in Pittsburgh a number of years ago, where a young lady who was working at a Dollar General had just gotten a $3,200 tax refund that she was going to use to relocate her daughter down to Charlotte to go live with her mother. The coworker overheard the conversation and had actually seen the grandmother bring the cash there. She had set up a situation where two of her friends were going to rob the girl. So later on, the two individuals who approached the girl tried to take her purse. A scuffle ensued. She took 2 bullets to the abdomen. She was later rushed to the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, where she died later that night. And now all three of them have been charged with everything from manslaughter to using a communications device to set up a robbery. So silence is golden. You don't have to tell everything.
I think we're walking away better prepared to deal with the scammers than we walked in. Dr. Dennis, thank you for your contributions tonight, and welcome to the platform. This is your platform as well. So let's get you on here a lot more. Zumbi, what you think, man? I'm trying to bring some good stuff, man. What do you think?
Well, it's a process in progress. It's something that our people need more of, and it can't be, again, we can't fall for what's the flavor of the month. It has to be a movement, not a moment.
I'll show you that. So make sure you check into the video for Dr. Let me see if I can pull it up. Oh, Emmanuel had a last thought he wanted to say. It's always good having Emmanuel on the show, man. All right, thank you all for this. I'm not going to read it because I'm having a hard time reading tonight. Yo, Emmanuel, we love you, bro. Yo, Katrina Prater, Oseo, we love you, Queen. And on to the Code Keepers. Hey, make sure that you check out Dr. Dennis's video. You can find it on here. You can go to the show notes, and I'll have the link in the show notes. I'll have her link to her email address and the link to her video in the show notes as well. But we got to make sure we don't get scammed out there. But what we do need to do is pick up a copy of that great book by Dr. Zumbi Sawala. I'm saying it in advance, bro. I'm giving you your honorific in advance, bro. I know you haven't gotten there yet, but it's coming, bro. So pick up that great book by Zumbi Sawala. Hey, go on your phone and check out the Generational Flip documentary series. Episodes 1, 2, and 3 are all available right now. And check out Doc's. She's on the foundation right now. She's not on the bottom. She's on the foundation. She's the foundation of the show right now. Check out Doc's great articles and her videos. You've been in a lot of podcasts. I didn't realize how many podcasts you've been on, Doc.
Yeah, we write as much as we write, and we speak with people, because one thing for our people is we want our people to really stop saying that information is hidden from us. That's a very common thing culturally. A lot of times our people say, no one told me that. I didn't know how to find that. This information is hidden from us. This government's stealing stuff from us. As a people, we understand history, we understand problems still happening, but we also want to understand that there's a lot of information out there that our people are sending to each other. We're sharing it with each other. We're spreading information. We're putting our time, money, resources into it for our people to have all this. So now we have to utilize it, do something with it, and never wait for anyone else to beg you to do that. We have to do that together as a people.